You are not waiting for your life to change. You are waiting to become the person who already has it. Reality is not something you chase. It is something you reflect from within. The moment you live from the end, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself to match you. Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to clarify one of the most misunderstood distinctions in all of my teachings. Tonight you will learn the difference between living in the end and living from the end, and why understanding this difference is the key that unlocks effortless manifestation. Most people who fail at manifestation fail for one simple reason. They are living neither in the end nor from the end. They are living in the middle, perpetually reaching toward their desire without ever claiming it. Tonight, that changes. Tonight, you will learn how to occupy the end completely. You will learn how to be the person who has their desire, not the person trying to get their desire. Let me start by explaining what these terms actually mean, because most people confuse them. Living in the end is internal. It is your state of consciousness. It is who you are being on the inside, in your mind, in your imagination, in the quiet place where only you and God exist. Living from the end is external. It is how that internal state expresses itself through your thoughts, words, actions, and decisions throughout your day. Think of it this way. Living in the end is the seed planted in consciousness. Living from the end is the tree that grows from that seed. You cannot have one without the other. If you live in the end but never live from the end, your assumption remains disconnected from your daily life. If you try to live from the end without first living in the end, you are merely pretending, acting a role without the consciousness to support it. Both are necessary. Both are essential. And tonight I will teach you how to master both. Before we go further, we must be absolutely clear about what the end means, because most people misunderstand this completely. The end is not the physical manifestation appearing or getting the thing you desire, or the moment it shows up in your bank account, or the day they call you back, or when your circumstances change. These are all effects. These are manifestations. These are shadows. The end is the state of consciousness of already having your desire, the inner knowing that it is yours, the assumption that it is done, the identity of being the person who possesses it. The end is a state, not an event. When I say live in the end, I am not telling you to imagine the future moment when your desire arrives. I am telling you to occupy the state of consciousness of already possessing it right now. This is why so many people struggle. They visualize getting their desire, the moment of receiving it, the excitement of achieving it, the process of obtaining it. But this is not the end. This is the bridge. This is the journey. The end is after you have had it for so long that it is normal, natural, and completely taken for granted. Let me give you an example. Suppose you desire wealth. Most people imagine checking their bank account and seeing money, receiving a promotion, getting a windfall. The moment they become rich, this is not the end. This is still in the middle. This is the process of becoming wealthy. The true end is 6 months after you became wealthy. You no longer think about money. You no longer check your account obsessively. You no longer feel excited about wealth. Why? Because you are wealthy. It is done. It is normal. It is who you are. Can you feel the difference? One is the journey to wealth. The other is the state of wealth. Always go to the state, never to the journey. Now let me teach you how to live in the end. How to occupy this state of consciousness completely. Living in the end means that in your consciousness, in your inner world, in the quiet place where only God sees, you have already received your desire. It is done. It is yours. It is fact. This is not hope. This is not belief. This is not positive thinking. This is assumption. It is accepting something as true. Now, regardless of current circumstances, when you truly live in the end, several things happen. First, your inner conversations change. Listen carefully. to how you talk to yourself about your desire. Do you say, I hope this works out? When will this happen? I'm trying to manifest this. Maybe if I do enough techniques. These are the inner conversations of someone not living in the end. These are the thoughts of someone still reaching, still seeking, still in the middle. When you live in the end, your inner conversations sound like it is done. This is mine. I have this. Thank God this is already accomplished. You are not hoping for it. You are grateful for it as though it already exists, because in consciousness it does. Second, you stop seeking confirmation. When you live in the end, you do not need proof. You do not obsessively look at your bank account hoping to see change. Why? Because you already know. The person who has their desire does not need to confirm they have it. They simply have it. If I asked you right now, do you have hands? You would not need to check. You would not need proof. You would not need to look down and confirm. You simply know you have hands. This is the quality of knowing you must have about your desire. When you live in the end, it is settled. It is certain. It is done. Third, current circumstances become irrelevant. When you live in the end, when someone points to your empty bank account and says, but you're not rich, it does not disturb you. When they point to your relationship status and say, but you're alone, it does not shake you. When they point to any current circumstance that contradicts your assumption, it rolls off you like water off a duck's back. Why? Because you understand that current circumstances are showing you the old state, the reflection of where your consciousness was. You are no longer there. You have moved to a new state. The mirror has not caught up yet, but you are not fooled by the old reflection. Think of it this way. If you smile at a mirror, but the mirror takes 5 seconds to show your smile, would you stop smiling just because the mirror still shows your frown? No. You would know the mirror is simply delayed. You would wait patiently, holding your smile, knowing the reflection must eventually match. This is how you relate to circumstances when you live in the end. They are the delayed mirror. You are not fooled by them. Fourth, you experience naturalness. This is perhaps the most important sign. When you truly live in the end, your desire feels natural, not exciting, not impossible, not too good to be true. Natural, normal, ordinary. How do you feel about things you already have? Your name, your home, your own body. Do you feel excited about them every day? Do you think about them constantly? Do you affirm that they are yours? No. They are simply yours. They are so naturally yours that you take them for granted. This is the feeling you cultivate for your desire. When you live in the end, it is so naturally yours, so completely assumed that it would seem strange if it were otherwise. When you catch yourself getting excited about your desire, when you catch yourself hoping for it or yearning for it, this is a sign you have fallen out of the end. Excitement means it is still special, still separate from you, still something you are getting rather than something you have. Return to naturalness. Return to the simple, knowing that it is yours. Now, once you have established this internal state, once you are truly living in the end in consciousness, that state must express itself in your daily life. This is living from the end. Living from the end means that your decisions, your words, your thoughts, your actions all flow naturally from the state you occupy in consciousness. You are not pretending. You are not forcing. You are not acting as if you are simply being yourself. And yourself is now the person who has their desire. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Your thoughts naturally conform to the end. When you live from the end, you do not have to consciously monitor every thought. Your natural thought patterns automatically reflect your assumption. If you have assumed you are wealthy and you are living from that state, you naturally think thoughts like, I can afford that. Money flows easily to me. I'm so grateful for my abundance. You do not think these thoughts because you are forcing yourself to. You think them because that is who you are. The wealthy version of you naturally thinks wealthy thoughts. If you have assumed you are loved and you are living from that state, you naturally think thoughts like I am desired, I am cherished, my partner adores me again. Not forced, not manufactured, natural, because you are loved in consciousness. So you naturally think from that state. The next thing is that your decisions automatically align with the end. This is powerful. When you live from the end, you make decisions the way the person who has their desire would make decisions. A woman wants to manifest a loving relationship. She is living in the end. In her consciousness, she is already in a committed loving partnership. Now, throughout her day, opportunities arise. A friend invites her to a singles event. She declines naturally, effortlessly, because she is not single. She is already in a relationship in consciousness. The person in a relationship does not go to singles events seeking a partner. Is she forcing herself to decline? Is she pretending? No. She is simply making the decision that naturally flows from her state. Or suppose a man has assumed he is successful in his career. He is living from that state. When someone asks him about his work, he does not complain. He does not speak about his job with resentment or frustration. He speaks about it the way a successful person would, with confidence, with pride, with the natural self-assurance of someone who knows their value. He is not acting. He is that person. Here is something profound. When you truly live from the end, right action flows naturally. You do not have to figure out what to do. You do not have to force yourself to take steps. You simply move through your day as the person you are in consciousness, and the right actions unfold naturally. A man assumes he is healthy. He lives from that state. Does he have to force himself to make healthy choices? Does he have to use willpower to exercise or eat well? No. The healthy person naturally chooses healthy foods, naturally enjoys movement, naturally takes care of their body, not because they are trying to become healthy, but because they are healthy. This is the effortlessness I speak of. When you live from the end, manifestation is not work. It is not struggle. It is simply the natural unfolding of who you are. Now let me show you where most people go wrong, because understanding these mistakes will help you avoid them. Mistake number 1, trying to live from the end without living in the end. Many people try to act wealthy, speak confidently, make decisions from abundance, but underneath in their consciousness, they still feel poor. This is exhausting. This is pretending. This is fake it till you make it, and it does not work. You cannot live from a state you are not in. First, establish the internal state. Occupy the consciousness of having your desire. Live in the end. Then and only then will living from the end become natural and effortless. Mistake number 2, living in the end only during practice. Some people do their techniques at night. For 20 minutes they live in the end. They feel wealthy, loved, successful. But then they wake up in the morning and immediately return to the old state. Throughout their day, they think from lack. They speak from limitation. They make decisions from their current circumstances. This is not living in the end. This is visiting the end briefly and then leaving. Living in the end must become your dwelling state, not something you do for 20 minutes, not something you practice during meditation, your permanent state of consciousness. Mistake number 3, confusing excitement with the end. Many people think they are living in the end because they feel excited about their desire. I'm so excited to be wealthy. I can't wait to be in this relationship. This is going to be amazing. But excitement means it is still coming. It is still in the future. It is still something you are moving toward rather than something you possess. The person who has their desire is not excited about it. They are satisfied with it. It is normal to them. When you catch yourself getting excited you have fallen out of the end, return to naturalness. Return to the calm, knowing that it is already yours. Mistake number 4. Checking the 3D for proof. This is perhaps the most common mistake. People live in the end in consciousness for a while, but then they check their physical reality to see if it is working. Let me check my bank account. Has the money shown up yet? No. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Every time you check for proof, you are affirming that you do not have your desire. You only check for things you do not have. You do not check whether you have hands. You know you have them. When you live in the end, you know you have your desire in consciousness. The physical manifestation is simply the shadow catching up. You do not need to check for shadows to confirm what you already know in the light. Mistake number 5. Giving power to the bridge. Sometimes people assume their desire correctly, but then they see circumstances that contradict it. Maybe they assume they are wealthy, but then they receive a bill. Maybe they assume they are in a relationship, but then they see their crush with someone else. If they react to these circumstances with fear, doubt, or despair, they have given power to the bridge. They have allowed the middle, the journey between assumption and manifestation, to shake them out of the end. Remember, the bridge of incidents builds itself. Sometimes the bridge looks chaotic. Sometimes it looks like things are going wrong. But if you remain faithful to your assumption, if you stay in the end and continue living from the end, the bridge will deliver you to your manifestation. Do not judge the bridge. Do not analyze the bridge. Simply remain in the end. Now let me give you the practical process, the exact steps to enter the state of living in the end and then live from that state all day long. Step 1. Identify the true end. What is the end of your desire? Not the journey, not the process, the end. Ask yourself, if I had this desire, who would I be? What state of consciousness would I occupy? Not what would I have, but who would I be for wealth? Not I would have money, but I would be a wealthy person for love. Not I would have a partner, but I would be loved, desired, cherished. For health, not I would have a healthy body, but I would be healthy, vital. The end is always a state of being, never a state of having. Step 2, assume the state now. Do not wait. Do not prepare. Do not build up to it. Now in this moment, assume you are that person. Not I will become wealthy. Not I am becoming wealthy. But I am wealthy. Not in the future. Now in consciousness, in imagination, in the only place that matters, your inner world, simply accept it. Claim it. Occupy it. You are now the person who has their desire. It is done. Step 3. Feel the naturalness of it. Once you have assumed the state, sink into the feeling of it. Not excitement, not euphoria, but the natural, calm, simple feeling of having. How would you feel if you had possessed this for months? It would be normal, natural, taken for granted. Find that feeling. That is the feeling of living in the end. Step 4. Make your first decision from the end. Now that you are in the state in consciousness, make one decision from that state. Ask yourself, what would the wealthy version of me choose right now? What would the loved version of me think right now? What would the healthy version of me do right now? Then choose that, think that, do that, not because you are pretending, but because you are that person in consciousness, and you are simply being yourself. Step 5. Monitor your thoughts throughout the day. As you go through your day, observe your thoughts. Are you thinking from the end or toward the end? Toward the end. I hope this works. When will it come? I need to manifest this from the end. It is done. This is mine. I am so grateful for this. Every time you catch yourself thinking toward the end, stop, reset, return to thinking from the end. This becomes easier with practice. Eventually, thinking from the end becomes your default. Step 6. Ignore contrary evidence. When you see circumstances that contradict your assumption, and you will see them because the mirror always lags. Do not react to them. Do not let them shake you. Simply recognize this is the old reflection. This is the shadow of where I was. I am no longer there. I am in a new state. And the shadow will catch up. Then return to your assumption. Return to living in the end. Step 7. Fall asleep in the end every night. This is crucial. The state you fall asleep in impresses the subconscious most deeply. Every night before you drift off to sleep, return to the state of the wish fulfilled. Feel yourself to be the person who has their desire. Let that be the last conscious thought before sleep takes you. Your subconscious works all night from that assumption, building the bridge, arranging circumstances, creating your new reality. Step 8. Wake up in the end every morning. The moment you wake, before you get out of bed, before you check the news, before you think about your day, return to the state. Assume your desire is fulfilled. Feed it, know it, be it. This sets the tone for your entire day. You begin in the end, and you live from that end throughout the day. Let me tell you about a man who truly understood this principle. He desired to own a home, a specific home in a specific location, but his finances were not where they needed to be. His circumstances said it was impossible. Most people in this situation would have visualized getting the home. They would have imagined the day they signed the papers, the excitement of moving in the joy of ownership. That this man understood. He did not visualize getting the home. He assumed he already owned it. Every night he fell asleep imagining himself in the home, not moving into it, not buying it, but living in it as though he had owned it for 6 months. He imagined sitting in his favorite chair, looking out his favorite window, feeling the deep satisfaction of being home. This was living in the end. And during his days, he lived from that state. When friends asked where he lived, he described the neighborhood, not with longing, but with the familiarity of someone who lived there. When he made decisions about furniture or decor, he thought about what would fit in his home. Not someday, but now. Was he lying? Was he pretending? No. In consciousness, in the only reality that matters, he did live there. He occupied that state completely. And here is what happened. Within 3 months, a series of seemingly unrelated events unfolded. An unexpected financial opportunity arose. The home he desired came on the market at the exact moment he had the means to purchase it. Circumstances that had seemed impossible suddenly became inevitable. The bridge built itself perfectly, naturally, effortlessly, because he remained faithful to his assumption. He lived in the end, and he lived from the end. And the physical world had no choice but to conform. Let me share with you the ultimate secret of living in and from the end. When you truly occupy this state, when you genuinely live in the end in consciousness, and naturally live from the end in your daily life, something remarkable happens. You stop caring when it manifests, not because you have given up, not because you do not want it, but because you already have it in the only place that matters, consciousness. And when you have it in consciousness, when you are living as the person who possesses it, when every thought and word and decision flows naturally from that state, you are content, you are satisfied, you are complete. The physical manifestation becomes a bonus, a pleasant confirmation, a shadow finally catching up to the substance. But you no longer need it to feel fulfilled, because you are already fulfilled in consciousness. This is the paradox. The moment you stop needing the manifestation is the moment it rushes toward you. Why? Because you have finally, completely, totally occupied the state. You are living in the end. You are living from the end. There is no gap, no lack, no reaching. You are the person who has their desire, and the universe must reflect that. The night before you sleep, you are going to live in the end. Choose your desire. Identify the true end, not the journey, but the state of consciousness of already having it. Now assume that state. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now you are that person. It is done. You have your desire. Feel the naturalness of it, the calm knowing, the simple acceptance. This is living in the end. Tomorrow when you wake, return immediately to that state. And throughout your day, live from it, think from it, speak from it, choose from it. When you catch yourself falling out of the state, and you will especially at first simply reset. No judgment, no frustration. Just return to the end. Do this consistently, morning and evening. Establish yourself in the end. Throughout the day, live from the end. And watch as your consciousness, which is the only reality, impresses itself upon the physical world. Watch as circumstances shift. Watch as the bridge builds itself. Watch as the shadow finally catches up to the light. Here is the final truth. Living in the end is the state. Living from the end is the expression of that state. Master both and manifestation becomes effortless. Not because you are trying less, but because you are more. You are not the person seeking their desire. You are the person who has their desire. And when you truly become that person, when you occupy that state completely, when you live from it naturally, the physical world must conform. This is law. This is truth. This is how consciousness creates reality. Live in the end. Live from the end. And watch your world transform to match the person you have become. Thank you and good evening as always. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.